Today I'm in Manchester Southern Cemetery, about 3 miles south of the city centre, in an area called Chorlton-cum-Hardy. This is the largest of the cemeteries in Manchester and one of the largest in the country. It was opened in 1879, so we're not going to find any exceedingly old graves here, but you can see from these shots that it's absolutely thousands of stones. I've come in on a side gate off Barlow Moor Road, and immediately as I enter there's a section set apart, and this is for the graves of people of the Muslim faith. As you can see, the inscriptions are not readable for me, but I'll just pick out one or two of the stones here. Back in the Christian section, there is just one mass of stones to see. I've obviously not come in the main entrance, so we're probably not seeing the largest stones and memorials, but there are just so many to read. I'll just make a comment on this stone here. Here they've made an effort to preserve the stones. There's a warning there saying this memorial is unsafe, do not tamper with the temporary support. And if you look behind, they've gone to the trouble of supporting this memorial with a wooden pole stake in the ground. So many of these cemeteries that I've visited, if a memorial is unsafe, then the staff just push it over so it lies flat on the ground. Here they've made an effort, or appear to have made an effort, at least in that instance. So congratulations to the people that run this cemetery. The other thing that strikes me is that the stones are all very readable. And that's probably because there's not too many trees over the top of these stones. Some cemeteries that we go to, I can think obviously of Highgate as one, where there are many trees, then the stones become obliterated with lichen and other growths. These are all very readable. Here, just picking one at random, Mary Jane Powell, you can read her dates and the memorial underneath and the details of her relatives. There's one down here I'll just pick up while we're at it. It's obviously a war grave. Cadet Arthur Dunn of the Royal Air Force, who died in 1918, aged 18. And another example where they've preserved the memorial by putting a supporting stake behind. In loving memory of Charles Fleming, dear Charlie, who died aged 23. I've picked this one because it's got a little more detail about the person. Griffith James Davies, born at Cardigan, died in Manchester. He was for 10 years chairman of the council, for 3 years organiser for the north of England, until his death walking delegate of the Manchester and Salford district of the Amalgamated Society of Carpenters and Joiners. It's always nice when they put some detail on the stone about that person's life. Next door is one with a very elaborate memorial with the, is it an angel? I don't see any wings. Anyway, a lady carved into the stonework in memory of Mary Hamilton. Perhaps it's a likeness of Mary Hamilton. One here that just says that Annie Hodkin died on Christmas morning 1916. This one here not only has an unusual first name for the lady, Protetsi, but further down I find Alfred, the youngest son, who fell in action in France March 27, 1918, just 19 years old. There are several you come across to aldermen and councillors and civic leaders in the city. Just an example here, this is Alfred Evans, alderman of the city of Manchester, who died in 1909. I've come down to one of the main pathways now, leading to one of the chapels of rest, and the memorials here are bigger, more imposing. I will wander down amongst these and see what we can find. There's one here with an angel and a cross. The angel unfortunately has lost both her hands, but down beneath the inscription reads Dr. Lily Marguerite Ashcroft, graduate of Manchester University, 20 years honorary medical officer, Greengate Hospital, Salford, the dear wife of Dr. George Vincent Ashcroft. Very simple one here. This one's Joseph Gibbons Sankey, distinguished architect, with his wife Fanny. This one's rather different in the stone used. It's a sort of brown stone with a sort of black patina around the outside. Quite unusual. And this one's dedicated to Joseph Mee and various members of his family. There's an area here which has a number of Armenian graves. The Armenians came to Manchester because of the cotton trade and were very successful at it. I'll just show you one or two of the stones. Partway down this one we read about Arthur Elias, beloved younger son, 1-7 Manchester Regiment, who fell in action in the Dardanelles 1915, aged 23, and was buried in the British Cemetery at Lancashire Landing, Gallipoli. So many fell at Gallipoli, particularly the Anzac forces had a bad time there. Another one here in this rather interesting dark stone with the blackened edges. This one sadly was a collector for the Inland Revenue. Here there is an area which is burials for the Coptic Orthodox Church. On each of these little stones, and there are 30 or 40 of them, it just says Coptic Orthodox Church. No names, no details. Mixed amongst them though are a couple of larger ones where the stones have gone rather over the top in comparison. This is Dr. Peter Yunan Syrian. And this one over here, there's a name down there, surname of Hale. But then alongside it are these rather less ostentatious markers for people that have died in the Coptic Orthodox Church. This is the large memorial to John Rylands. John Rylands made a fortune in the weaving industry in Manchester and the surrounding areas and became by far the wealthiest man, multi-millionaire in his day. He died in 1888, but also a philanthropist. And left a number of monuments to his time here, including the Rylands Library, so much remembered in Manchester. His name crops up in various places. John Rylands. One to a merchant here, John Dalzell Fairley, merchant, Lagos, West Africa, and of Whalley Range, Manchester. And he died at Old Colwyn, North Wales. This one here, interesting inscription on the base. Henry George Roberts, Assistant Principal Chaplain and Honorary Lieutenant Colonel to HM Expeditionary Forces to Egypt. Died 1921. There is just so much to see here. So many memorial stones, and almost all of them easy to read. One here with an interesting choice of words. Alice, for 31 years the devoted wife and chum of Fred Isherwood. This one here caught my eye. It's got the pictures on it, but also further down, Dr. Timothy Allen Wise, a legendary Manchester, Salford and Macclesfield character, a man of Christian principles, spiritually bohemian, funny, clever, outrageous, always kind, an inspirational friend to musicians, writers, artists et al., a devoted father, and so on. And there is the gentleman concerned, and there is his daughter. This one here is to Ernest, the beloved husband of Mary Alice Triffitt, and he died of wounds in Cambria, 1917, aged 37, and he's buried at Rouen. This one is to Eric Sketchbook Thompson, who lost his life in the Munich air disaster, aged 48 years. He was a sports journalist, 27 years with the Daily Mail, Manchester. There's a rather grand memorial here to one of the aldermen of the city of Manchester and his wife Bessie and their daughter Alice. This one here is to a mayor of the city of Manchester, 1911 to 1913, and it's Sir Samuel Walter Royce, Knight JP of Tamworth House, Burnage. This one here is to the famous aviator John Alcock, and as it says at the bottom here, Flight Commander Sir John W. Alcock, pilot of the Vickers Vimy biplane, which made the first direct non-stop transatlantic ocean flight from St John's in Newfoundland to Clifton in Ireland. 1,890 miles in 15 hours 57 minutes. There we are, Sir John W. Alcock. I include this memorial because of its interesting design. It's actually to Albert James Lidington and his wife and son, but the design is interesting, quite unusual. Another war memorial here, down halfway down, Frederick Birchenouf, born 1889, killed in action 1918, buried at the British Military Cemetery at Tincourt in France. One here to the Hunt family, William Henry Hunt, and at the bottom it just mentions Harold, their son, who died at Gallipoli, aged 18, just 18 years old. One here to Ellen, the wife of Romeo Foster, rather forlorn looking woman with a very large, presumably Bible on her lap. A tall one here in the centre circle here. dedicated to John Henry Davis, the dearly loved husband of Amy Davis of Bramhall Hall. And down at the bottom here we have presumably the wife mourning her husband. A group of 3 stones here to the Dobbins family, although the left hand stone is still vacant. And it says here about John Thomas Dobbins, for over 50 years Methodist lay preacher and Sunday school worker, voluntary visitor, and for many years at Manchester and Wakefield prisons was known as the prisoner's friend. And over there a few more of the Dobbins family. A very elaborate one here. We have a young lady up here with a fallen angel beside her, a bouquet of flowers in her lap, and it says here Marion Henschel, 2006, Edward Henschel. And then coming back a little bit, we have this dog with his bowl resting on a spongy mat, or it looks like a spongy mat, but it's obviously marble. Very elaborate. This one to Henry John Pickett, for 46 years a devoted minister of the Primitive Methodist Church and principal of Hartley College for 10 years. Nearby is another one that mentions Hartley College. Arthur Samuel Peake, sometime Fellow of Merton College, Oxford, lecturer in Hartley College, Manchester, first Rylands Professor of Biblical Exegesis in the University of Manchester. And a couple more to the Armenian people of Manchester. And we have yet another one who died in Gallipoli, or from wounds at Gallipoli. Thomas B. and Elizabeth Burgoyne's son, William T. Burgoyne, 7th Battalion Lancashire Fusiliers, and he's buried at Alexandria. One here to Harry Robinson, late of the Halle Orchestra, died 1915. If love could have saved thee, thou wouldst not have died. This one mentions Joseph Firth, Governor of the Withington Institution. Here's one of Richard Dorber Ashcroft, and above it is this face in relief. Was that Richard Dorber Ashcroft? We have an outline of a family story here with Ellen Jane, who lost her husband Richard in 1909, and then her youngest son was killed in the war in 1917, died of wounds, and he's buried in the British cemetery near Popperhinge. And then their oldest son, Thomas Anthony, a master mariner, he drowned at sea, 1918, aged 36. So there's a whole saga there for that family, and the poor woman left behind, Ellen Jane. And next stone but 2, we have at the bottom there Percy Blackshaw, killed in action in France 1918 and interred in France, as they all were. The bodies weren't brought back. Those that died on the front in Belgium and France were buried there. It was not a policy to bring them back. This one is to Aline G. Webber, New Zealand Mounted Rifles, who died at Gallipoli and buried where he fell. And then underneath, Gerald Webber, 10th Royal Fusiliers, died in Manchester of wounds received in action in France. Nearby are many war graves or memorials. And I'm coming round here to the main war memorial. And here on the memorial are the names of some of those who died. W's, those beginning with T, Teesdale, Taylors, Stansfields, Silk, Sidebottom, Shores, and so on alphabetically right along here. Tells you their regiment, tells you their service number and the date they died. So many. Now it's not clear whether these are those that died on the front or those that died back in this country, or maybe it's a combination of both. Well, I'm going to leave this visit to the Manchester Southern Cemetery at this point. I've been here for several hours. I've just wandered anywhere and everywhere, nothing systematic at all, just picking off stones that look interesting, either for the inscription or the design. It is vast. It is really interesting. The stones are so easy to read, and it makes it a pleasure just to wander, just reading them as you go. Certainly worth a visit, a long visit I suspect. You may need to start with a map and mark off the bits that you have walked, because frankly I have no idea where I've been, although I think using my phone I can get my way back to the entrance I came in. Do come and visit Manchester Southern Cemetery. It is a really interesting place. There are some famous graves here which we didn't find, but then we didn't know where they were. L.S. Lowry, the artist, is here somewhere. Matt Busby, the great manager of Manchester United, is buried here. And a number of other famous names are here also. So if you're into your famous graves, you may want to do some research before you come to know exactly where to look. Till the next time.